said formally, and it is titled Introduction, so Nale Mora Kalmega D-ba-Shmayo. So you have the manuscripts which are mentioned by the editor, but there may be also other manuscripts which contain this Mimro. And I will give in this short presentation some of the characteristics of this Mimro, especially its introductory remarks. And there we have a few sources of earlier works which are treated or commented on the Lord's Prayer, like d-ba-Shmayo, Sarug, and so on. There are also other authors who have commented on the Lord's Prayer. The apostles as the most docile group, so that is one of the points which we can find in this Mimro. Because it is they who asked the Lord to teach us to pray. They are the chosen ones of the Son of God who holds the key to open every creature and whose compassion was poured out in full flow on the sick, the blind, the deaf, and the dead. Which this homily says is that this is prayer par excellence. Sarug has several stanzas stressing the unique nature of the Lord's Prayer. In it, the Son of God placed a great weapon inside of Abun, and he gave it to his apostles so that they might resist with it the attack on the adversary. For example, Abun. On this point, he says that the most powerful word, Abun. So that is when we are in problems, when we are faced with devil, it is enough to say Abun, that the most powerful word that can put out the full strength of the enemy. Then he transmitted it as a teacher of the prayer. He is not a mere ordinary scribe. This Christ is presented as the great scribe and much more than a scribe. He is the Son of God, or simply the Lord, our Lord, and the Son of God who desires each day that everyone should live. On account of this reason, you have learned to call the Father our Father, so that from the very start, the Satan should know who your Father is. So, as I mentioned, Abun, the most powerful invocation. The Lord's Prayer begins with Abun, our Father. This opening word becomes also its name. This first word is endowed with far and deep implications, as we perceive in the stanzas that build the first section of Thekkeparampil's interpretation. Through the very first word, we are taught to call God Abun, our Father. This supreme divine invocation has by itself annihilating repercussions on man as we read below, through the very word, through the very first word, that he taught us to call Abun, our Father, the entire strength of the enemy will be put out. Then I jump to the petition for the constant bread of the day. This section is concerned with one of the basic needs of man. At first, our author highlights the all-sufficient nature of the Lord's Prayer with regard to man's needs. One can find in it ways and means for coping with all our essential needs, both material and spiritual. As we learned, so it is best to pray, because everything that is pressing on you will be found in it. With such an introduction, Lord Jacob passes on to his explications of the constant bread of the day, Lahamu Aminu Yom, bread needed for the day that comes. Ask Lord, give us continuously the bread of the day. What else indeed would the life of the day want if not bread? Stones, metals, riches, how precious and valuable they may be, cannot replace the daily bread that alone the human body needs from day to day. Gold, silver, pearl, and even beryl, stones of effort, fine twined linen, and the precious outer garments. These riches are not more precious than life, because the body constantly wants only the bread of the day. Then he mentions also Kush and Hind, both Ethiopia and India. Not only in this homily, and there are also a few more homilies where the mentions both Kush and Hind together. So here is one quotation. If you were to give to the body pearls from Ethiopia and India and refuse Egypt in bread, the body would faint, die, vanish, and come. It is the bread that the body wants for life, then nothing else. And the world is seeking in surplus what is worthless. For the body will not eat gold if you were to give it, neither jacinth nor even the precious stones. The pearl possesses neither taste nor even smell. It is not eaten nor drunk, and behold, it is precious. Why it is precious? Only he who is worthless and ignorant would be eager to possess it in surplus. The bread of the day is needed for both the king and the worker. The bread of the day the king receives from his kingdom. The bread of the day the worker receives from his work. The Lord's Prayer is meant for all people, the king and the worker, the rich and the poor. Each group should be able to pray it with unveiled face, galut aakar, hence unashamedly. For this, everyone should abide by the ration and the portion of the bread of the day, prescribed by the Lord. The utility of the body, its necessity, also its sustenance are equal. The king and the worker take the day. And so the rich man may have a lot of bread. If he eats more than what is needed for one day, the nature will punish him. So I just wanted to show, and the text can so that we could sing. And if some of the students here, they can sing in both. Yes. So this can be sung. It has 12 syllables. Some of our students would sing with it. For the Malayalam has learned it already. And also for the Kottayam, d-ba-Shmayo. Pokanolam salavatu modam sade Untitled in Western, we can sing 7 different melodies. Habalan lahmo min diyamo men bedgazo Vashku hawai kaso hawai dashbaknan Valgasino alotai dam hinan Elo paso atman ishramo hailo Betuda ilo kiman puto gaboruto Observatono ankashotar valminamin. The rest you can learn by yourself, and for the full text you will get when it is published. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob, for this remarkable exploration of Lord's Prayer. Next, we have Dr. Kottayam, Professor at Pontifical Oriental Institute of Religious Studies, presenting a fascinating paper on Syrian philosophy during the medieval periods. Dr. Lindo, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Syrian philosophy during medieval period. Syrian philosophy during medieval times was influenced by both the Greek philosophical tradition and Christian theology, as it was practiced by various Syriac-speaking communities in the Near East, including the Assyrians, Armenians, and the Syrian Orthodox Church. The Syriac-speaking intellectual tradition was rich and developed, especially between the 6th and the 19th centuries. Key features of Syriac philosophy during these times include the translation movements, its interaction with Neoplatonism, and the synthesis of religious thought with classical philosophy. Translation movement. Syriac writers played an important role in translating Greek scientific, medical, and philosophical works. One of the most significant contributions to medieval Syriac philosophy was the translation movement that took place in the 7th and 8th centuries. Many great philosophical and scientific works were translated into Syrian, particularly from the works of Aristotle, Plato, and the Neoplatonists. These translations were not just literal, but often involved interpretations and adaptations of Greek philosophy to fit the theological context of the Syriac-speaking Christian communities. The translation took place mainly in 3 phases. The first one, 6th century translations. Mostly interpretative in nature, Sarug of Kottayam translated Dionysian corpus into Syriac and also translated pseudo-Aristotelian treatise on the universe, and Alexander of Aphrodisias, causes of the universe. During this period, the translations of Aristotle's logical works, which form the basis of higher education in late antiquity and medieval ages, together with Porphyry's introduction to them. 7th century translations, usually aiming to reproduce the original Greek very precisely. Number of revised translations took place on the books of Organon. As you know, the book of Organon is 6 works of Aristotle based on logic and dialectic, mostly propagated by the Peripathetical school, later translated by Poitiers into Latin. Many of the scholars who engaged with the translation movement were the members of the monastery of Queenshire. The key figures were the Syrian Orthodox Patriarch Athanasius II and George, Bishop of the Arab tribes. 9th century translations normally considered as a stepping stones into the translation to Arabic. This period witnessed a great flurry of translation activity from Greek into both Syrian and Arabic. This is done with the patronage of Abbasid caliphs. Frequently, the scholars found it more convenient to translate it from Greek into Syrian, for which there was an advantage of several centuries of translation experience, and then from Syrian into Arabic. One of the most famous translators of this period was Ibn Hisham. Since Arabic tended to replace Syrian as a vehicle for learned secular literature in the later Middle Ages, many Syriac traditions ceased to be copied. Thus, it was known from the quotations in Syriac authors such as Moshe Bar Kefa, John of Dara, Dionysius Bar Salibi, Jacob Bar Shako, and Naka of Edesse. Syrian philosophy played a critical role in transmitting Greek and Arabic philosophical ideas to the Latin West. During the medieval period, Syrian scholars and translators worked as intermediaries between the classical Greek text and the emerging Syriac tradition in Europe. Now we move on to the second point, Neoplatonism and its influence. Neoplatonism, particularly through thinkers like Plotinus and Proclus of Lysius, had a profound impact on Syriac philosophy. Philosophers like Ibn al-Tayyib and Bar Hebraeus were influenced by Neoplatonist metaphysics, especially the idea of a single transcendent source of all being. Neoplatonic concept of emanation had a profound impact on the Syriac concept of creation. The idea that all beings emanate from a single divine source was adopted to describe the relationship between God, the creation of the world, and the fall of the soul. Neoplatonism emphasis on the ascent of the soul towards the divine and the idea of the theurgy had an impact on the ascetic and mystical practices in Syriac Christianity. This idea dovetailed with Christian asceticism, which sought union with God through prayer, fasting, and purification of the soul. The influence of Neoplatonism can also be seen in Syriac traditions, rich mystical and symbolical language. Like the Neoplatonists, Syriac theologians often use allegorical and symbolical interpretations of scripture to express spiritual truths and the nature of the divine reality, emphasizing the journey of the soul towards God. These ideas were synthesized in Christian theology, leading to a metaphysical framework where the divine unity was the main central theme. Now we want to see the major figures who played an important role in Syriac philosophy. The first one, Ephraim the Syrian. Although he lived before the medieval period, Ephraim's theological works had a lasting influence on the Syriac philosophic tradition. His hymns and writings often reflected the Platonic view of creation and the soul's ascent to God, blending Christian doctrine with philosophical ideas. For Ephraim, the world was not merely created by God in an arbitrary way. It was shaped out of divine wisdom, mirroring the Platonic idea that the material world reflects higher and transcendental realities. This connection between divine knowledge and creation laid the groundwork for later theological developments in Syriac and medieval Christian thought. Abraham, another early figure, his writing, especially his demonstrations, show a theological approach that incorporates elements of Stoicism and Greek philosophy. Even if Abraham was far from the Logos theology of Justin Clement origin, at the same time he seems to have been familiar with Bardaison's ideas, especially the Gnostic ideas, concerning the nature of physical bodies and the role of God's will or of nature in governing the behavior of natural elements and animals. And Theodore of Mopsuestia is also known as Theodore of Antioch. Another important figure whom we have already said at the beginning, Jacob of Edessa, a key figure in the Syriac translation movement. He was also very important figure who conveyed the Syriac philosophy into the Arabic world. The next one is Ibn al-Qayyim. In addition to his philosophical work, Ibn al-Qayyim was known for his translation of key medical texts. A prominent figure in medieval Syriac philosophy, Ibn al-Qayyim was a Christian philosopher who studied Greek texts. His works demonstrate a synthesis of Neoplatonic thought with Christian monotheism. He is also known as Nishba al-Iraqi, a strong Aristotelian. He had an influence on the writings of Avicenna, Averroes, later more on Moses Maimonides, the Jewish philosopher. And the last person to whom I deal with here is Bar Hebraeus. Bar Hebraeus, also known as the Abraham of Edessa, was not just a philosopher and a theologian, but also a polymath with expertise in medicine, astronomy, and other sciences. He authored works on logic, metaphysics, and ethics, drawing on Greek philosophy and incorporating it into the context of Syriac Christianity. Key philosophical themes, I mainly deal with three themes. The first one, the metaphysics and the nature of God. Syriac philosophers influenced by Neoplatonism often focused on the nature of God as the one, the absolute source of our existence. There was a strong emphasis on the divine simplicity and the emanation of all things from God, which was often reconciled with the Christian doctrines of creation, the soul, and salvation. Many Syriac philosophers grappled with the questions of the nature of the soul and its relationship to God. The soul's journey towards salvation was often described in terms of returning to the divine soul, as theme influenced by Platonic and Neoplatonic thought, ethics and virtues. Syriac philosophers also engaged with questions of ethical behavior, often drawing from both Christian moral teachings and Greek ethical philosophy. They emphasized virtues such as humility, charity, and asceticism, which were important in Christian spiritual practice. I conclude, Syriac philosophy in medieval times was a vibrant intellectual tradition that bridged the classical world and early Christian thought, influencing both Islamic and Judeo-philosophical traditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mimro, for your convincing presentation. Our third speaker is Dr. George.